The long layover, Anna stood near the arrival board. Frozen like a photograph in a forgotten album, her suitcase rested by her feet, but her eyes weren't on it. They were scanning the crowd, the noise, the swirl of voices around her. All unfamiliar, all fast, all too much. She had just flown in from Spain after a last-minute casting call change. The call was confusing, the flight was delayed. Now the driver meant to pick her up was nowhere to be seen. She was tired. Not the kind of tired a nap could fix, but the kind that crept into your bones when you'd been running too long, carrying too much without anyone noticing. A woman in a blue uniform rushed by. Child cried somewhere near the baggage claim. A couple argued softly over a lost phone. Anna stayed still, and then it happened. Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it with hope, but it was just a bank notification. Her ride hadn't responded to her texts. No calls, no updates. The crowd thickened. Cameras flashed across the terminal. A murmur swept through the passengers nearby. She didn't notice. Her head hung low. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her water bottle and took a slow sip. Her reflection in the glass doors showed a woman who wasn't sure where. She belonged at that moment. Then, without warning, a soft voice cut through the storm. "You okay?" Yana blinked and slowly turned. It was Keanu. He stood there, wearing a plain gray hoodie, jeans and sneakers. Simple, gentle, quiet. No entourage, no cameras trailing him. Just a kind man with calm eyes who looked at her like she mattered. She didn't speak at first, because in that second, something broke, and not in a bad way. More like the way a frozen river starts to crack in spring. Slow, unexpected, but honest, I think. "I missed my ride," she said softly. Keanu didn't ask who, or why, or what happened. He just nodded and said, "That happens sometimes." Silence followed, not the awkward kind, the good kind. The kind that made her feel like she didn't have. To perform, after a moment, he asked, "You want to sit down for a bit?" "I'm just waiting on my next flight. No rush." Anna hesitated. He didn't push, but something in her said yes before. Her mouth did. They moved to a quieter corner of the terminal, away from the noise, the screens, the constant movement. She sat. He sat beside her. Not too close. Not too far. Just enough. "You ever feel like everything is spinning and you're standing still?" she asked suddenly. Keanu didn't answer right away. He thought about it. "Yeah," he said at last. "More than I'd like to admit." Her lips curved into a tiny smile. The first in hours. They talked. Not about Hollywood. Not about roles or scripts. It's not about fame or directors. They talked about coffee. About favorite books. About what airports. Reminded them of she told him about her father. How he used to walk her to the gate when she was a child. How she once got lost in Madrid airport and sat by a vending machine until a janitor found. Keanu told her about his sister, how he used to wait with her on long flights, how he always packed extra snacks just in case someone forgot to eat. Their stories wove into each other like threads in an old scarf. Simple, warm, familiar. Then, someone recognized Keanu? "Is that Keanu Reeves?" Whispers, glances. Someone pulled out a phone. Anna flinched. But Keanu didn't move. He turned to her gently and said, "We can walk outside if you want. There's a quiet bench near the car rentals. Not many people there." She nodded. They stood. He picked up her suitcase without asking. Outside, the evening air wrapped around them, soft, cool, and far away from the buzz inside. The bench was, just as he said, tucked between two planters, partly shaded by a tall singamode. Anna looked up at the sky. "It's strange," she whispered. "I was about to cry inside, but now I feel okay. Not great, just not so lost." Keanu smiled. Sometimes, he said, you just need someone to wait with you. They sat there for a long while, not talking much now, just being there eventually. Anna's phone lit up. The driver finally responded. Traffic, confusion, apologies. He'd be there in 20 minutes. Keanu stood, stretched a little, and checked his own watch. "You gonna be okay?" He asked. Anna stood too, and this time she didn't look lost. "Yeah," she said. "I think so." He nodded, gave a small wave. and turned to walk away. But she called out, "Keanu." He turned. "Thank you." He smiled, that soft, quiet smile he was known for, anytime. And then he was gone, swallowed by the same crowd he had walked through hours before. Anna sat back down, alone now. But not the same kind of alone. Something had shifted, quietly, without drama, without shouting, just two strangers at an airport, one who forgot how to breathe, and one who reminded her how. And somewhere deep inside, in a place no cameras could. See, Anna began to believe that maybe the world wasn't as cold as it felt an hour ago. The moment that stayed Anna didn't sleep that night, she lay in her hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, the low hum of the air conditioner blending with the sound of her thoughts. Her phone was silent now. No calls, no scripts, just stillness. But her mind kept going back to the airport bench, to Keanu too, to the way he didn't try to fix her panic or fill the silence. He had just stayed. It felt strange, not because it was dramatic, but because it was simple, kind, steady. And Anna wasn't used to that. Anymore, not in this city, not in this industry. Why did he wait with me? She kept asking herself, was he just being polite? Or did he actually see me? Not the actor, not the face. Me. The next morning, she put on sunglasses to hide her puffy eyes and headed to the studio for her fitting. The set was buzzing with activity. Costume racks lined the walls. Makeup artists shouted across the room. Assistants rushed with clipboards and phones. Anna walked in quietly, her shoulders slightly hunched. "You're late." A voice snapped behind her. She turned. It was Darla, the assistant director. Cold eyes. Perfect posture. Not a fan of delays. "I told you the schedule changed. We're behind now. Next time, keep your phone on." Anna nodded softly, not wanting to explain the layover mess. She hated excuses. She moved to the fitting room and slipped into the costume. It was a heavy red dress with tight sleeves and a wide collar for a period piece set in 1890. The stylist circled her, pinning fabric here, adjusting there. Anna stood still like a mannequin. But her mind wasn't in that room. It was still on that bench. With him, Keanu. Reeves, her memories played like flashes, the way he asked if she was okay. The way he carried her suitcase without a word. The way he let her sit in silence without asking for a performance. Most people she knew needed something in return. Attention, validation. Stories they could tell later, but Keanu didn't. He just waited like a guardian. Someone knocked on the fitting room door. "Anna," said the coordinator. "You're on set in 10. She nodded and stepped out. The lights on set were hot and bright. The scene was supposed to be emotional. Her character watches her husband ride away to war, holding back tears. They called action. The camera rolled. Anna stood in place. The wind machine blew her hair just right, but her face was blank. Nothing came. "Cut," the director said, a little confused. "Let's try again." They reset. Tried again. And again, by the third take, people started whispering. "She looks off today. She's usually better than this. Is she okay?" Anna stood there, frozen. It wasn't that she didn't feel anything. It was the opposite. She felt too much. Her chest was heavy, her hands cold. Her heart still stuck on that quiet moment. At the airport, when someone had seen through her, hadn't asked her to be anyone else. But here, on this set, she was expected to pretend. The assistant director stepped in. "Anna," she said sharply, "you need to get into character. We don't have time for this." Anna blinked. She wanted to scream, not out loud, just inside. She wanted to tell them that maybe, for once, she didn't want to get into character. Maybe she just wanted to be real for a minute. But before she could say anything, someone walked onto the set. The crew turned Keanu Reeves. He wore a simple black t-shirt, jeans, and calm eyes. The same quiet calm that had settled beside her just one night ago. The director looked surprised. "Keanu." "I heard the shoot started today," he said. "I thought I'd stop by." Anna's breath caught. He wasn't in this movie yet. No reason to be here, but he came anyway. "Can I borrow her for just 1 minute?" Keanu asked the director. There was a long pause. and then the director nodded. Anna followed him off the stage and into the hallway. It was quieter there, the noise of the set fading behind them. He looked at her gently. "You okay?" he asked again, and this time she didn't lie. "I'm not sure." Keanu nodded. Then he leaned against the wall and said nothing for a moment, and that silence once again made her feel safe. "You were strong yesterday," he finally said. "Not because you smiled, but because you stayed. You didn't run." Anna looked down. "I almost did." "But you didn't." They stood there, two actors outside a set, no script between them. And then he said something that caught her breath. "They see the mask." "I saw you." She blinked. Her throat tightened. And then slowly her eyes filled. Not because of pain, because someone had finally said the words she hadn't heard in years. Not "you were great," not "you were beautiful." Just "I saw you a few minutes." Later, she walked back on set. This time she didn't perform. She just let herself feel the wind blew, the camera rolled, and she stood there, eyes full, heart open. She didn't pretend the pain. She remembered the airport, the silence, the kindness, the waiting, and the take was perfect. When it ended, no one spoke, not even the director, because they saw something real, something raw, something honest. They didn't know where it came from, but Anna did. It came from a bench near the car rentals, from a man who carried her bag and never asked for a thank you, from a few simple words, "You want to sit down for a bit?" Sometimes, she realized, you don't need loud moments to change your life. You just need someone to wait with you in silence. The whisper they never heard a week passed. The shoot went on. Anna showed up every day. On time, focused, present. But something had changed inside her, not loudly, not publicly. It was quiet, like the way sunrise comes without asking permission. She smiled more. Not because the cameras were rolling, but because she felt it again. Even when she didn't say much, people noticed the softness in her expression, the calm in her steps. What they didn't know was that every night after wrapping, she sat by her hotel window, looking out at the city and remembering the airport, remembering the silence, remembering Keanu. He hadn't called. He hadn't texted. He hadn't posted about it. And that, strangely, made her feel even more safe. Because he wasn't trying to be her hero. He just was, on a rainy Thursday. The cast gathered for a table read in a private room at the studio. Everyone was dressed casually, coffee cups steaming, laughter bouncing around the space. Anna sat quietly at the end of the long table, flipping through her pages, and then she heard his voice. "Morning." She looked up. Keanu walked in, rain on. His shoulders, a warm scarf around his neck. A few heads turned. Some smiled politely. Others did a quick double take, but no one said much. Because his presence had a way of softening the noise without trying. He sat 2 chairs down from Anna. There, eyes met for just a second. She smiled. He gave a small nod. The read began. The scene was heavy. A moment of grief between 2 characters who had loved and lost in silence. Anna's lines were steady, but when Keanu spoke, something shifted in the room. He wasn't even in this film, but he had agreed to do a cold read for one of the missing actors. And when his voice hit the line, "I waited for you." Even when no one told me to, the entire room froze. Anna's fingers tightened around her script. She couldn't look at him because the words didn't feel like fiction anymore. They felt like a memory, like a whisper from that airport bench, like something only she could hear. The director leaned forward. "Wow, that was powerful," he said. Keanu just smiled and lowered his head. Anna quietly excused herself and stepped out of the room. She walked down the hallway to the dressing area and stood by the mirror. Her hands trembled, not out of fear, but out of something. Deeper truth. She looked at herself in the glass, not the character, not star, just Anna. Then she heard footsteps, soft, careful. He had followed. Keanu stopped at the door. Didn't enter, just stood there. "You okay?" He asked again the same way he had asked at the airport. Anna turned. Her voice was shaky but honest. Why do you keep showing up? Keanu didn't smile this time. His voice was low, steady. True. Because I know what it feels like to not have anyone do that for you. Anna's eyes welled up. He stepped closer, slowly, gently.
Ow.
Like someone approaching a scared animal. You don't have to explain, he said. Not to them, not to me. She nodded, but then she whispered something she hadn't said to anyone. I almost quit acting last month. Keanu didn't react. I was exhausted, she continued. I felt invisible. I thought maybe I wasn't good enough, or kind enough, or something enough. She paused, tears at the edge. But that night when you waited with me, something opened up, like I mattered, without having to prove it. Keanu looked at her, eyes filled with something unspoken. You do matter, he said quietly. You don't have to keep hurting to earn your place. She covered her mouth. A tear slipped down. Keanu didn't reach to wipe it. He just let her feel, because sometimes kindness doesn't fix things. It just stays. They stood there a few more moments before a crew member peeked in. Anna, we're ready. For you? She nodded and turned back to the mirror, took one breath, then another, and walked out. Keanu stayed behind. He looked around the room once, then slowly walked over to the rack of costumes, touched one gently, a red dress with a wide collar, and whispered softly to himself, she's not lost. The next scene was shot that afternoon. It was a turning point in the film. A scene where Anna's character stands alone on a bridge, deciding whether to stay or walk away. The rain was real, the cold was real, and so was the silence between takes. As the cameras rolled, Anna stood on the bridge, coat wrapped around her shoulders, hair wet, heart open. This time she didn't have to act, because the pain, the confusion, the loneliness, she had known it, but so had the healing, the waiting, the kindness. And when she looked out into the distance, a small tear on her cheek. She wasn't thinking about the character's husband. She was thinking about a man who had once sat with her on a cold bench at an airport, without asking for anything in return. The director called. Cut. But no one moved. Not right away. Because they all felt it, not the performance, the truth. Anna stepped down from the bridge set. She was soaked, dress sticking to her legs. Keanu stood nearby. Their eyes met again, and this time, nothing needed to be said, because the truth was loud enough in silence. The scene that wasn't acting 3 days after the bridge shoot. The studio held a press event for the film. Media vans lined the street. Outside, paparazzi waited with long lenses and sharper questions. Anna stepped out of the black car slowly, wrapped in a soft white dress and a deep red shawl. Her hair was pulled back, her face calm. But behind her eyes, something flickered, like a candle in wind. She didn't like these events, not because of the cameras, but because of what they asked her to become: a brand, statement, a story for their headlines. She stood quietly. As flashes popped in her face, Anna, who are you wearing? Anna, how do you feel about the rumors? Anna, you've never looked better. What changed? She forced a smile, said thank you, nodded politely, but it wasn't her. Not fully inside. She missed the silence. The kind you find on an airport bench or a rainy film set hallway as she walked toward the venue doors. Someone whispered to her from behind the crowd, "Don't forget to breathe." She turned fast. Keanu stood there, in a dark suit with no tie. Calm, warm, present. You came, she asked. You said you'd be nervous, he replied. She had said that 2 days ago, in a quiet corner of the studio cafeteria, but she hadn't expected him to remember or to show up. Thank you,
Boys,
she said quietly. Always, he replied. They walked in together, not arm dash and dash arm, not for the cameras, just side by side, like to people who didn't need noise to feel seen inside. The room buzzed. Journalists lined up with questions. Tables overflowed with fruit trays and untouched bottles of water. The cast was scattered in corners, some posing for selfies, others practicing answers in mirrors. Anna found a seat near the end of the stage. Keanu stood nearby. Just out of the spotlight, the moderator cleared his throat and opened the panel questions. It flew fast, some silly, some sharp, some loaded, when it was Anna's turn. A reporter leaned forward with a grin too wide. "Anna," he said, "rumors say you froze on set last week. How did you fix that? New coach? New method? Or maybe someone special helping behind the scenes?" There were quiet chuckles. Anna's face didn't move. She reached for the microphone slowly, paused, then said softly, "Someone waited with me." The room stilled. The reporter blinked. "Sorry." She looked straight ahead, calm, steady. "I didn't need fixing," she said. "I just needed to feel safe. And someone made space for me." Keanu looked down, not ashamed, just deeply moved. The moderator shifted quickly to the next question, but something in the air had changed. Anna had said something rare, real. After the panel, as people stood and gathered their bags, a woman from wardrobe walked over to Anna and whispered, "That was brave." Anna nodded, touched by the quiet honesty. Outside, the sky had turned golden. They stepped out together. The crowd was thinner now. The street calmer. Anna turned to Keanu. "Can I ask you something personal?" He nodded. Double quotes, "Have you ever felt invisible?" Didn't hesitate. Every day for years, even with the fame, especially with it. She exhaled. They stood beside her car now, the engine humming softly. "Why do you help people quietly?" she asked. He smiled gently. "Because when I needed help the most," he said, "no one shouted for me. They just stayed." Nada looked at him, really looked. Not as a co-star, not as a famous man, but as a soul who understood hers. "You stayed," she whispered. He nodded once, and then he stepped back, letting her open the door. "You're stronger than you think," he said. "But you don't have to carry everything alone." She paused in the doorway. "Are you going back to your project next week?" "Yeah," he said. "Italy shoot. Will I see you again?" He didn't answer right away. "Maybe," he said. "But even if not, just know I'm rooting for you, wherever you are." She smiled. "Not a performance, not a habit, a real one. Safe travels, Keanu." "Duena." And then the door shut. The car pulled away. She watched him through the rear window, growing smaller in the distance, but somehow heavier in her heart. Later that night, Anna opened her suitcase at the hotel. Tucked between her clothes was a small, folded note, no name, no signature. Just one line written in soft pencil. "You are not lost. Just finding your way." She smiled as her hands shook slightly, and for the first time in a long time, she believed it. The moment she stood tall the next morning, Anna woke early. The hotel curtains swayed with the wind outside, and sunlight spilled across the floor like gold paint. Her phone buzzed. Not with calls, not with scripts. A message from her manager. "Don't be alarmed, something leaked. A photo of you and Keanu. Media's picking it up. You might want to stay quiet for now." Yana sat up slowly, heart still. She opened social media, just a few taps. And there it was, a grainy photo, taken from behind. Her and Keanu at the airport, sitting on that quiet bench. She was hunched. He was still. They weren't smiling, they weren't talking, but the image spoke more than words ever could. Who is the man waiting with Anna? Keanu Reeves protects co-star during private moment. Life guardian angel. Airport whisper. What did he say to make her smile again? Anna stared at the screen. Not angry, not afraid, just surprised. They hadn't done anything wrong. But now everyone wanted a story from it. A story that didn't belong to them. Her phone buzzed again. This time, from a friend. "You okay?" she replied. "Yes, but I need to be careful now." That day, she arrived on set quietly, dressed in black, hair tied back, no makeup. People looked at her differently now. Some smiled wider than before. Some whispered when she walked by, one of the younger. Actresses walked up to her and said softly, "You and Keanu." "Is it real?" Anna paused. then replied, "What's real is the kindness. The rest isn't their business." The girl nodded, surprised by the answer. On set, the director approached her carefully. "Rough morning?" Anna nodded. "You still good?" "To do the scene today?" She thought for a moment, then said yes. "I'm ready." The scene was delicate, a moment where her character finally speaks up after being quiet for too long. She had to stand in front of a room, full of powerful people in the story, men who talked over her, doubted her, dismissed her, and she had to say just one sentence: "I was there. You didn't see me." They rehearsed it, blocked the movement, set the lights as Anna stepped into position. Something deep inside her stirred, not as the character as herself. She thought about the airport, about the way she sat in silence, about how no one saw her, until he did. And suddenly, she didn't need to act. She just spoke clear, strong, double quotes. "I was there. You didn't see me." The words rang out like thunder in still air. Everyone froze. Even the cameraman forgot to breathe. The director leaned forward and whispered, "Cut." But no one moved. One of the producers near the back rubbed his arm. "Chills," he said under his breath. Anna turned and walked off set. Not with pride, not with ego, just with peace. Outside the stage, she checked her phone. A new message. From Keanu. "I saw the photo. Sorry it leaked," she replied. "Don't be." Reminded me how far I've come. He sent back a simple heart. Later that day, as Anna sat with the crew during lunch, a quiet grip assistant approached her nervously. He held a folded paper in his hand. "This is weird," he said. "But my sister, she's 12. She saw that photo. She's going through stuff." And she said it made her feel less alone. Anna took the paper gently, opened it. It was a child's drawing, crayons on notebook paper, a girl with her head down, and someone sitting next to her, not fixing her, just being there. Anna felt a tear slip down her cheek. "Thank her for me," she said softly. "She made my whole week." He nodded and left, and Anna folded the drawing and tucked it into her bag. That night, while walking back to her hotel, the sky above turned a soft purple. She passed a group of people waiting for taxis. One of them turned and called out, "Anna." She looked. It was a young woman with a cast on her wrist and hope in her eyes. "Can I ask you something?" the girl said. Anna nodded. "Double quotes, was that really Keanu in the photo?" Anna smiled gently. "Yes," she said. "He was there when no one else was." The girl smiled, her voice trembling. "I just wanted to say, that moment changed something in me." Anna reached out and gently touched her shoulder. "Then it was worth it." As the girl walked away, Anna stood still under the soft city lights. She realized something then. This wasn't just about her anymore. That moment, that quiet bench, that simple kindness, it had become a ripple, and people were starting to feel it, not because of the fame, but because they saw truth in it. They saw someone who was lost, and someone who stayed, and somehow that gave them hope. The story they couldn't take 2 weeks later, as the film wrapped. The crew gathered for a quiet farewell dinner on the studio lot. String lights were hung above folding tables. Soft jazz played in the background. People hugged, laughed, took photos they'd never post. Anna sat near the edge, swirling juice in a glass. Watching others celebrate, she smiled softly, honestly. This time, it wasn't the smile of someone trying to belong. It was the smile of someone who finally felt seen. As she took a sip, someone tapped her shoulder. She turned. It was a delivery guy, holding a long, thin box in an envelope. "This is for you," he said. Someone left it with instructions not to wait for a signature. She blinked, confused, then opened the envelope first. Inside was a note. In handwriting she now knew well. Raps are hard. Endings are harder. This one's not an end. Just a pause. You found your light again. Never let it dim. If you ever forget who you are, remember the bench. Kana felt her throat close gently. She opened the box next. Inside was a thin metal frame. A photo. A black and white still. Grainy but powerful. It wasn't the airport photo from the internet. It was one no one had seen, a private shot. From behind, her sitting, head down, and Keanu beside her. His head turned toward her slightly, not smiling, just present underneath. A tiny caption was printed in the corner. Sometimes, love is just staying. Anna held the frame to her chest, eyes glassy. Later that evening, after most of the crew had left, she walked through the empty sound stage, quiet, still sacred. She stood at the center, eyes closed, and then slowly she began to speak, not to anyone around her, but to herself. "I was almost gone," she whispered. "And you waited." Silence answered her. But it wasn't lonely anymore, because even in the quiet, she felt him there, not in body, but in the way kindness lingers, the way stillness can echo, louder than noise, the way a moment on a bench can stay inside your soul forever. A few months passed, the film released. It didn't break records, but it touched hearts. Critics called Anna's performance raw, stunning. Unfiltered interviewers asked about her process, about how she found such depth in that one moment, the bridge scene, the courtroom confrontation. The final monologue, she gave polite answers, spoke about the script, the director, the late nights. But she never mentioned the airport. Never talked about the photo. Never shared the note or the drawing from the little girl. Because some stories aren't meant to be shared. Some stories are meant to be kept. One evening, as fall wrapped the city in soft orange leaves, Anna received a message. Just a single photo, no text. It was a quiet lakeside, a bench under a tree, the seat empty but peaceful below it. The caption read, "The waiting continues." She didn't reply. She didn't need to. Instead, she printed it and placed it next to the first photo Keanu had. Sent side by side, one from the beginning, one from now. And she smiled. Not because she had found all the answers, but because she had found someone who waited long enough for her to find herself. Months later, at a charity gala, Anna took the stage briefly to present an award. After the applause, she paused, then added something that wasn't on the teleprompter. "Before I leave, I want to say something simple," she said, her voice steady. "If you ever see someone sitting alone, someone who looks lost, you don't have to fix them. You don't have to say the perfect thing. Sometimes you just have to sit beside them, quietly, kindly, patiently, and that's enough to bring them home again." There was a long silence, and then the room clapped, not politely, but deeply, because they knew. That wasn't a line from a script. That was the truth. Outside the gala, as guests walked to their cars under soft lights, Anna stood by the valet, her shawl wrapped tightly around her. A quiet voice spoke from behind her. "You looked like you were glowing." She turned. There he was, Keanu, in a simple suit, no cameras, no red carpet, no spotlight, just him. They didn't speak right away. They didn't need to. Then she asked gently, "What brought you here?" He smiled. "I just came to wait." She laughed softly, eyes misty. "I think I'm finally ready to walk." Beside her, "Then let's walk." And together, with no destination, no noise, no fear, they walked into the night. Two people, once strangers, now something more. Not lovers, not legends. Just souls who waited for each other until one day, one no longer felt lost,